51-year-old Telma Boinville lived in the quiet North Shore neighborhood of Pupukea, Hawaii, in 2017. She was married to Kevin Emery. They had an 8-year-old daughter named Makana. Telma was a teacher at a local elementary school. In order to make some extra money for her family, she cleaned units in a Hawaiian vacation rental. She enjoyed activities such as surfing, running, yoga, martial arts, and baking. On Thursday, December 7, 2017, Telma picked up Makana at Sunset Beach Elementary School and went to a nearby vacation rental house on Keiki Road, whose owners were clients of Telma's cleaning business. Makana stayed in the Toyota Tacoma pickup truck watching movies while her mother went inside the double-story home to clean it. Shortly after entering the residence, Telma walked in on a couple who was busy burglarizing the property. 23-year-old Stephen Brown and his 20-year-old girlfriend Haley Danderand got access to the house through an unlocked window. They asked Telma to lay down, tied her hands, then they beat her with a baseball bat and strangled her as well. Brown then went out to Telma's truck and told her daughter to get out and come with him. He callously told Makana that they ended her mother's life. Brown carried the girl to an upstairs room, followed by Danderand. They duct-taped her mouth and tied her to a bedpost. The couple left the scene in Telma's truck. A short time later, a couple, tourists from Australia who were renting the home, walked inside and discovered Telma's lifeless body. They heard movement inside and immediately left to call 911. The incident was reported around 3:20 p.m. Police responded to the call and discovered Telma's lifeless body tied up and lying in a pool of her own blood. They also found a hammer, knife, and mallet next to the body. Makana was upstairs, uninjured and tied to the frame of a bed. Telma's husband, Kevin Emery, learned what had happened when investigators informed him via a phone call. He was not allowed to enter the house. He then rushed to comfort his daughter in an ambulance at the scene. Telma's daughter told police that a man with green hair came out of the residence and took her inside. A woman with pink hair helped him tie Makana to the bed. The case gained significant media attention after Garrett McNamara posted an emotional Facebook video. He is the twin brother of Kevin Emery, Telma's husband. In the Facebook video, he said that he is offering $100,000 for any information leading to the suspect's apprehension. The 35-second clip went viral. "I have $100,000 cash right now for anybody who can tell me who just tied up and duct-taped my niece and caused her mother to lose her life at Keiki Beach at the North Shore of Oahu," McNamara said. $100,000 right now if you can tell me who just slayed my twin brother's girl. Makana also told her father about the appearances of the suspects while in the ambulance. Somehow, Kevin's twin brother Garrett found a photo of the couple and texted it to him. It's not clear where the photo came from, but Kevin posted the picture on Instagram with a promise of a $100,000 reward, and a civilian manhunt for the suspects ensued. Kevin also took the photo to the police still at the scene. "I told the police officer that these are the people who just took my wife's life," Kevin recalled. "I calmly asked Makana as she was shaking if I could show her an image to see if it's the couple she saw. And she immediately said yes as she pushed the phone away from her. Fortunately, Makana did not see her mother's body that day." Police officials issued an all-points bulletin for Telma's truck. That evening, law enforcement arrested Brown and Danderand when the truck was spotted in a Walmart parking lot in Mililani Town Center. Surveillance footage from the Mililani Walmart store showed Danderand buying an untraceable mobile phone. She apparently still thought they would escape the crowd of police and civilians that waited for them outside. She paid for the mobile phone with Telma's bank card. She had the card in the front pocket of her hoodie. When the stolen truck was found in Mililani, police said there were at least 75 civilians there looking for the suspects, too. It had been 7 hours since the body of Telma Boinville was discovered when authorities arrested the couple suspected of taking her life. They spent the weekend in jail and appeared before a Honolulu County judge on Monday morning, December 11, 2017. Brown's bail was set at $1 million and Danduran's was set at $500,000. 23-year-old Stephen Brown was allegedly combative and uncooperative when he was detained, officials stated. He spontaneously uttered, "Just shoot me, I deserve this." 20-year-old Haley Dandurand made a similar plea to police. "Can you just pull your gun out and shoot me in the head?" she asked. "My life is over after today." The sad news had rocked the quiet North Shore neighborhood. Friends and family members were grieving the tragic loss of Telma's life. At a vigil on Friday evening, December 8th, Telma's friend Virginia Herbert was still in shock over the news. She did everything she could to be with people, Herbert told Honolulu News Now. She would celebrate life. Telma's husband, Kevin, attended the vigil and announced he had already made peace with his wife's attacker. "It is very hard for me to say this right now, but I forgive you," he said in a video. "To the persons who did this, I know this is an act of evil. Love your friends, love your neighbors, love your families," he said. For unknown reasons, the case then stalled and was deemed cold by some. It appeared as if the couple might not be guilty, as was first assumed. Delays in the trial had led to public outcry and unrest. More than 5 years after the brutal slaying of Telma in the Hawaiian vacation rental, the court case started in 2023. Stephen Brown and Haley Dandurand were charged with taking Telma's life in the second degree, as well as burglary in the first degree and kidnapping. Brown was the first of the 2 defendants to face a jury in Telma's case. Haley Dandurand is yet to go to trial. She has previously pled not guilty. During his trial, Brown, who took the stand in his own defense, had attempted to pin the blame on his girlfriend. The couple smoked marijuana before entering the house. "I thought we were just going to hang out," Brown said. He accused Dandurand, who was armed with a machete, of demanding Telma to lie down so the pair could restrain her by tying her up. "We asked her to lay down," Brown stated during his cross-examination. "She was cooperative." Brown testified that he left to go surveil the property and claimed that when he came back to his girlfriend, she had fatally injured Telma. He said that Telma was unharmed and perfectly fine when he momentarily left the property. However, during closing statements, Deputy Prosecutor Scott Bell said Brown was the only defendant with the physical capacity to restrain Telma. According to the medical examiner, Telma Boinville had wounds caused by a blunt object and sharp force injuries to her head and sustained 31 injuries to her body. His defense attorney, William Bagasol, questioned the state DNA expert. He held up a hammer, knife, machete, a meat tenderizer, and a bat to confirm none had evidence of Brown's DNA on it. Despite the fact that his DNA was not found on the objects, the 12-person jury deliberated for less than half a day and determined that 28-year-old Stephen Brown is guilty on all 4 counts. It was on Friday, January 20th, 2023, that Stephen Brown was found guilty of taking Telma's life, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of burglary. Brown showed no emotion and stared straight ahead as the verdict was read by the judge. On January 24th, 2023, a circuit court trial jury determined that it is necessary for Stephen Brown to be subjected to an extended sentence for the protection of the community. That verdict gave Judge Rowena Somerville the option of life without the possibility of parole. He was scheduled to be sentenced on May 10, 2023. It has not been made public yet what his sentence was. Haley Dandurand's trial is set to begin in July 2023. She entered a not guilty plea to the charges against her. Patricia Joseph was a 56-year-old mother and cafe owner from Fort Jones, California in 2005. On July 15th of the same year, she went missing from her home. She left her duplex apartment without her glasses, contact lenses, purse, or cell phone. There were also several drops of blood found on her bed. Her body was found 3 days later in the Klamath River in California by a kayaker. She was only partially clothed. It was determined during her autopsy that someone had taken her life. She had suffered from blunt force trauma and had been strangled. 5 years later, in 2010, an arrest in the case was made. Philip William Frace was arrested after a witness came forward and made a statement that indicated that Frace was involved in Patricia's case. Frace was a marijuana grower from the Laytonville, California area. Patricia reportedly worked as a trimmer for Frace some time before her life was taken. Frace, at the time, was in the Mendocino County Jail awaiting trial after being charged with taking the life of an employee, Stephen Richard Schmidt. Stephen was a 49-year-old transient who had been living in a motorhome on Bell Springs Road, Laytonville, California, where Frace resided as well. Stephen's body was found by a cadaver dog, where he was tied to a tree. Frace was eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison for that crime. In Patricia's case, Frace was released in 2012 by the Siskiyou County District Attorney without being charged, due to a lack of evidence. Unfortunately, the detectives did not have any other leads to follow up on, so the case went cold. In 2021, the Sheriff's Office created a cold case and forensic evidence team to review Patricia's case and resubmit evidence to the Department of Justice for fresh analysis. The team prioritizes cold cases and reviews physical evidence using modern tools. Finally, on February 6, 2023, 75-year-old Philip William Frace was arrested again and charged with taking Patricia's life. The Siskiyou County Sheriff Jeremiah LaRue, who worked on the case, said that the analysis produced compelling results connecting Frace to Patricia's demise. The arrest is a result of the determination of our investigators and reflects our faithful commitment to pursuing justice for victims of violent crimes and their families. Our cold case team will continue to focus on these cases with dedication. I would like to commend everyone for their devotion to this investigation and thank the District Attorney's Office for their assistance. Our hearts are with Patricia's family, and we hope this arrest begins the path toward closure and healing. On a Facebook page dedicated to Patricia's memory, our family said that the time for justice is long overdue, and we miss you like crazy, Mom. Frace remains in custody on a $2 million bail, as well as an additional $15,000 bail for a failure to appear charge. Terri Turachak was a 35-year-old woman who lived in Denver, Colorado with her 3 young children in 1996. On October 5, 1996, in her apartment in the 1900 block of East 17th Avenue, Denver police and medical personnel found her body. She had been hit by a blunt object to her head. She had been strangled as well. Witnesses told investigators that they could hear there was a disturbance in her apartment the night that her life was taken. The detectives took DNA samples from her body, but they could not match it to a possible suspect. There were no witnesses and no real leads for investigators. The case subsequently went cold. In January 2023, 62-year-old Ricky Dawson was extradited to Denver after his DNA was matched to the DNA found at the crime scene in Terri's case. He was 35 years old when he took her life. Terri's brother James had this to say after the extradition: "We never forgot, we never gave up. It became very real when they tell you he is being extradited." Detectives with the Denver Police Department conducted a criminal background check for Dawson and found that he was arrested in Denver in August and September of 1996. Those records showed that he was in the Denver area around the time that Terri's life was taken. Dawson is currently in the Sewanee Correctional Facility. His DNA was matched to a Panama City, Florida case of 2001 on August 8, 2004. He has pleaded guilty to taking that person's life and assaulting them. Dawson's sentence in the 2001 Florida case included a 25-year prison term, which he was still serving when he was extradited. Dawson, through DNA evidence, is also suspected in an execution and assault case in Seattle in 2000. The victim's injuries and the manner in which her life was ended were similar to Terri's case. Seattle police continue to investigate if he is responsible for that crime, and their case has not yet been presented to the King County prosecuting attorney. In February 2023, Dawson appeared in court in Colorado for Terri's case, where he was charged with taking her life and assaulting her. Terri's brother James said, "They have enough evidence, I guess, now to charge him and hopefully make it stick, and literally put him away for the rest of his life on paper. She was a great mom. Everything was for her kids," James remembered. He says time hasn't gotten easier through the years. Family goes on, it'll never get filled back up. It's a huge chunk that none of us will ever know how it ended up, said James. She would have enjoyed having grandchildren. So much lost, just a beautiful soul. He hopes his sister gets the justice she deserves soon. I know it's good to forgive. That's not me now. Maybe someday, but now, no, said James. My hope would be that he would get the execution penalty, but I know that's not possible in Colorado, said Sarah Oakland, Terri's daughter. So I think we're all hoping that he rots in jail, and we wanted to let him know that we didn't forget. Cynthia Ruth Wood was a 33-year-old mother of 3 children staying in Bradenton, Florida in 1984. She worked as a manager at the Cape Vista Child Care Center, also in Bradenton. She was in the process of divorcing from her husband, Barry Wood, and was in a custody battle. She had 1 son from a previous marriage and 2 children with Barry. Cynthia was accusing Barry of physically abusing her and her son from the previous marriage. One day, when picking up her children from the Cape Vista Child Care Center, she met a man, Donald Michael Santini, who came to pick up his girlfriend's children. Detectives believe now that this was all a plan to befriend her. On June 6, 1984, Santini contacted Cynthia and informed her that he has information on Barry that she can use against him in the custody case and asked her out on a date. The 2 of them met at her house where he would pick her up to go out on their date. She was seen by neighbors leaving her Manatee County apartment with Santini. That would be the last time Cynthia was seen alive. Then, 3 days later, on June 9, 1984, her body was found in a water-filled ditch in Riverview, Florida. The autopsy determined that she was strangled, and Santini's fingerprints were found on her body. Investigators issued an arrest warrant for Santini. When they tried to locate him, they found that he was on the run. Santini's trouble with the law began 6 years earlier in 1978, when he was convicted of assaulting a woman while serving in the U.S. Army in Frankfurt, Germany, according to a 1985 Herald article. Upon returning to his home state of Texas, he was charged with aggravated robbery in connection to a convenience store robbery in 1983. He confessed, then he disappeared from the state just days later. A witness, Pamela Lynn Kincaid, came forward on June 15, 1984. This was 6 days after Cynthia's body was found in the ditch. She stated that she knew Charles Michael Stevens. This was an alias used by Santini. He confessed to her that he took Cynthia Wood's life. Santini befriended Pamela and moved in with her before meeting Cynthia. Her children attended a daycare center just a few blocks away called Cape Vista Child Care Center in Florida, where Cynthia worked as a manager. It was clear to investigators that Santini was responsible. His fingerprints were found on Cynthia's neck. They had witness statements from Pamela. There was also the link to the child care center, but frustratingly, investigators could not locate Santini. That was until 2023. In June 2023, almost 40 years later, a tip from the Florida Caribbean Regional Fugitive Task Force led U.S. Marshals to Campo in San Diego County, California, where they arrested 65-year-old Donald Michael Santini. He was known in Campo as Wellman Wells Simmons. He served on the Campo Lake Marina Community Planning Group, as well as president of the board of directors for the Lake Marina Views Mutual Water Company, a troubled water district where nitrate contamination has left district residents forced to drink bottled water for the past 3 years. Billy Joe Janin, chair of the planning group, told East County Magazine, "Everyone was surprised. There was nothing unusual about him." The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office said in a statement that, "We are aware of this arrest and have sent detectives to interview Santini while we await his extradition." At the time of his arrest in June 2023, he had 13 aliases, including Donald Chapman and John Trembleon. During his extradition hearing, the judge had the following conversation with Santini. "Good morning, Mr. Santini," the judge said. "My understanding is that you are admitting you are Donald Santini. Is that correct?" After Santini answered in the affirmative, the judge sought to make sure, saying, "And you are the person that is wanted in the state of Florida. Is that correct?" Again, Santini said he was. On June 9, 2023, the anniversary of the day on which Cynthia's body was found and Santini's birthday, Santini agreed to be extradited from San Diego to Florida. He said he does not feel safe because of the victim's family, prompting the public defender to tell him to be quiet. Santini is currently being held without bail. Michael Running, Jr., a deputy district attorney, said, "Regardless of whether the case just happened yesterday or, in this case, it's something that is 40 years old, we want to make sure that justice is achieved." Florida Gulf Coast University forensic professor Dr. David Thomas said the following. "Due to the nature of how Cynthia Wood lost her life, Santini likely left a lot of evidence behind for investigators to gather all those years ago. There is this thing called Locard's exchange, meaning that what is on me usually is left at that crime scene, so I'm going to leave some part of me there. So it may be in her clothes, it may be on some part of her body, but there's something that he left there at that scene, and they were able to collect it, so kudos to them," he said. And it is evidence that Dr. Thomas said, if stored correctly, can still be processed. Usually, the case is literally in a box that is stored in a room, and most likely that room, depending on if the room is temperature controlled, can probably last forever, he said. Dr. Thomas also said this break in a decades-old cold case is likely bringing a small sense of relief to the detectives who first worked it. It became very personal to them, because it is the victim and that investigator that are tied to the hip, and that investigator is tied to that family, he said. If Florida authorities failed to extradite Santini within 30 days, he would have another hearing on July 10th at 8:30 a.m. in the San Diego Central Courthouse. Her family was informed by the police department, but they have not yet released a statement after news of the arrest was made public.